Thank you for staying with us. We are... See, if you notice today, the conversation has just been about how to make things better, a better power supply, better economy, which will affect life. And now we're... Festus says Nigeria's economy will bounce back as the federal government is easing COVID-19 restrictions. Shops, hotels, restaurants, schools, and international flights should all resume now. He thinks that will make it better. But while that is happening, what about the digital quality of life? Have you ever heard that phrase? Now, that sounds strange to some people. Digital quality of life. Now, on that index, it gives insight into how people's overall well-being or welfare is influenced by their digital well-being. A study samples the quality of digital well-being in 85 countries across the globe over 5 key pillars: internet affordability, internet quality, electronic infrastructure, electronic government, and electronic security. It's a product of privacy company Shack, providing insight into the gaps between people's online experience and various societies. Now, that's long grammar. But on that index, that's a digital quality of life index, the 2020 index. Nigeria stands at 81 out of 85 countries. That doesn't sound too good. But in Africa, Nigeria is in the 5th position. But how much do we as Nigerians agree to this ranking? Do we even know about it? Anyway, so to help us look at this, we have Emilia Asamita, who is a multi-sector strategist. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too. Also joining us is Frank Ofem, who's a digital consultant. He joins us from Ibadan via Skype. Hello, Frank.
Hello, hi.
It's good to have you. I would have greeted you in your language, but I'm not sure whether you would speak it on live television. So don't worry. We'll come back to that in a bit. Let me start off with you, Emilia. Talk to us about what's this thing about digital quality of life. We'll talk about quality of life, and now you're coming up with this digital quality of life. Tell us about that.
Okay, so when we talk about digital quality of life, in that phrase, it talks about the impact and the extent to which the digital ecosystem affects day-to-day living. Now, prior to now, say a decade ago, digital was considered only as a terminology that related to things around technology, information communication technology, ICT. But you've seen, we have all seen how the world has evolved into a digital world. And so when we talk about things that have to do with digital now, we're not speaking about technology anymore. We're talking about sustainable development. And you see that the frame of reference as a development agenda ties to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which will lapse in 2030. And 2020 has been declared as the beginning of the decade of action. So things that have to do with digital are much, much, much more than just being technology. It's now mainstream life. And, some of the work that we have done as an organization with respect to that has been to really take a look at just what digital has become. And some of the projects we've done, I'll go into that a bit later, around capturing, what does it mean when you say digital business? So I guess the digital quality of life as a report is not as popular, but it should be popular because it will help governments, both subnationals and national governments, to really rethink and recalibrate, sort of the quality of life that people have.
It's strange to think that my life, the quality of my life, can be measured based on how much time I spend on the internet, how much time I spend on my phone. And that's turning out to be a lot of time these days.
And that's for you because you belong to a few of the privileged. So the quality of life of the larger number of population of Nigerians is also, it's also qualified or categorized by their inclusion or exclusion in digital space. So when you have people who are not connected to the internet at all, we can say it bothers a great deal on their quality of life.
So what if we say the digital quality of life is negatively impacting on the human quality of life?
Well, prior to the pandemic, yes. we would say you walk into a room, people have become antisocial, everybody's staring at their phones. I'm on TV, I have my phone in my hand, for instance. So prior to now, you'd say that. But with the lockdown, with the pandemic, these have become our lifesavers, as it were. We now solely depended on devices for every single thing, to reach people, to stay connected, to stay informed, to get DIY tips on how to save our own lives. So you'd see that the tide, let me not say the tide has changed, that's cliched, it's gone 360, full circle. What used to be a nice to have, what used to be second to basic amenities, food, shelter, and clothing, has now jumped up the ranks. So maybe not shelter, I would say food, shelter, and digital, so to speak. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk to the consultant and let him tell us about that. Frank FM, this matter of, because some people have more or less like lost their human relations capabilities, not completely, but that has somewhat declined. And their digital capabilities, their digital relation capability appear to have gone up. Is that what it ought to be? What happens to our humanity in the face of the digital age?
Okay, yeah. So, as people who generally want to have the best of experiences no matter where they are, just like our guest there on the studio has said, if you push it a step further, I'd like to say that quality of life index that we see is a component of quite a lot of things, and I'm quite glad that this kind of topic is coming up now, especially as we approach the post-COVID era. I have attended 2 weddings. I have attended 2 funerals, interestingly, coincidentally, 2. And I didn't have to leave my location. And I could send my gifts ahead to the parties who were, and my condolences. And I did everything, and nobody felt offended that I was not able to attend. So that quality of being in the present, being in the now, I believe that was what was targeted in the index that we see from the report.
Okay, Emilia, first of all, the ranking that Nigeria is on, do you agree with that? 81 out of 85.
I'm indifferent, to be honest. And I'd just like to add to what Frank said before I go to that, is to say that prior to now, those who were introverted, were, so to speak, on the other side. They had to show up. They had to live up to the expectations of their relatives, to attend functions, to smile. But now they have that balance, that opportunity to maintain their safe space and control their access and level of socialization, as it were, with the outside world. That's on the one side. On the other side is it takes an extra effort for you to bond and engage someone that you can't see face to face. So when I'm on a Zoom call, for instance, I need to be conscious about my voice. I need to smile. I would like for people to see me, to relate with me. Prior to, if there wasn't that technology interface, I'll just be myself. I mean, I might be a bit cold. I may not be warm. So it does take, and what I'm trying to say is it does take some set of social skills even to adapt to this new normal and the use of technology. Imagine 2 weddings, 2 funerals. That it's even possible to do all of that in one day, depending on your schedule and the itinerary of when those things happen. So I was really disappointed, to answer your question, that Nigeria ranked 85. But when I looked
81.
at 81 rather out of 85, but when I looked at the other countries and I looked at even the African countries, there are some African countries that are not even listed at all. So I would say that what that challenges us to do as a country is to perhaps commission our own study, and let's look at our digital quality of life as a country and see where we stand. But again, 81, there's really little to be, that's to be desired of such. We're talking about internet affordability. We still have penetration pretty low. People talk about how the telecom organizations and technology firms have made so much money in a pandemic. I agree and I don't quite agree in some cases, because more than ever, they had to boost their systems to ensure that there's little or no downtime, right? So it's even now more obvious if the quality of your service is not at par. And we've seen people on social media, brands, being dragged for poor quality of service. So it's putting a tech entrepreneur under a lot of pressure, because now more than ever, people want to see what you're about. The quality of the internet is another parameter with which the Digital Quality of Life Index or report was considered.
And some people who have been touting themselves as number one have shown themselves as number nowhere.
There's some trends that have come up just, that have the capacity to destroy businesses altogether, based on the quality.
We'll take a moment. Festus is saying it's sad that poor broadband and mobile connectivity continues to drag Nigeria down the Digital Quality of Life Index until there's effective investment in broadband. Again, that effective investment, Frank will have to weigh in on that, but that one will come back from this break. Just stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. We're looking at the digital quality of life. Nigeria has been ranked out of 85 countries, 81, based on 5 parameters: internet affordability, internet quality, electronic infrastructure, electronic government, and security. Now, Festus says investment in broadband will make it easier. Frank, over this period of the pandemic, we've seen that there's been more of the digital in Nigeria, and indeed, you talked about it. You've attended 2 funerals, 2 weddings, all from the comfort of your room. But do we have what it takes? Do we have that infrastructure? And how, if we don't, how can we move out of there?
Okay, so I think it's a neat scenario, as you would have it. The experience that I have is not relative to me alone. There are quite a number of people that have gone through such experiences too. But this is my take. Whether it is an SME, whether it is a singular person, a family, we have to look at the big picture of the quality of how broadband, for instance, how it would affect me as an individual, my health, my consumption of education, my consumption of power. So if you look at it from that perspective, you see that it's actually a bigger picture than just a one singular problem, be it just IT infrastructure, for instance. So I know this topic is going to come up, but along the line of personal experience still, we've seen where the teachers, the schools have said, okay, hey, the pandemic is on, we'd like to train your kids. But it then so turns out that the parents are worried about the quality of broadband or the cost of broadband, as the case would be, And then even when one is structuring online training programs within that period, you also still find out that it's safer for you to do recordings than to have the now effect of one-on-one sessions because of the quality of what you are going to get out of it. So that mix and match is still quite a challenge.
But while we're looking at that, while everybody, how do we even improve this quality while we're waiting for the investments we keep talking about?
The improvement of quality is, I've been following all the programs that have been going on today quite interestingly. It's not far-fetched. Policies, frameworks, and the stakeholders. If you want to improve on the quality for health, for instance, you know that you cannot do that in isolation, at any level. It has to do with the people who, it's just like talking about the case of rape, for instance, and then all those who are on the panel are all men. It doesn't just add up. So all people who are involved in health, both those who are patients, both those who are, it's not also about having to do a direct copy of infrastructural setup of most of the countries that are also in this report. If you watch the report, is quite funny because it says that affordability is not directly related to the quality of life. And then for me, I would want to differ because in our own case, I believe affordability could have taken care of a lot of issues that has to do with access primarily. Because if I can access it, then we can challenge it on a sector by sector basis. Say be it health, for instance, say be it education, be it power.
You know, Amelia, that the question of affordability being directly or indirectly linked to the quality of digital life. There are those who argue. I mean, to some extent, some people say Nigerians are paying the highest for internet access.
Yes, we are.
But yet, it appears to be everywhere. So every man, as far as he or she can get an Android phone.
Yeah.
Some as cheap as low as 10,000 naira.
$30.
Can get access to the internet. I mean, you can get 200 megabytes for 200 naira.
This conversation is a broad one, and I'll try to capture very quickly. I remember one of the telecom companies offered free SMS services, and it became a trending issue on Twitter. People were talking about how they don't want SMSs, they want data. But when they released their report 3 months after, and it showed the number of people that had taken up the SMS and the value and contribution, was amazing. So to say you stay in an urban area, I believe, so it's easy to have a bit of a jaded experience. Those who stay in peri-urban and rural areas will tell you that...
No, I'm a village boy. So whenever I go to the village, I just know that forget internet.
Thank you. So when we all go for our end of year, for those who go for end of year, celebrations, they'll tell you, limited access. Let's even leave that. Those who go into rural areas for field work would tell you, you get out of office replies. I'm on the field. Expect, delayed responses because of limited access. So it is poor. But one area that I like to really fault this index is the fact that Rwanda is not captured. Ghana is not captured. These are two countries that have made significant progress in provision of broadband infrastructure and the use of technology for good. And if they are not captured, then it just... it's not.
Does that negate the report?
It doesn't, but it doesn't give a true picture of Africa's position. So if you have Nigeria ranking 81, Kenya ranking 77, South Africa ranking 59, and Morocco ranking 70, and then Rwanda is not captured. Rwanda has been celebrated, albeit a small country, so there's still some of those concerns and challenges. But as one of the best models in the integration of technology. So. My concern is it doesn't give a very good picture of the continent and some of the significant achievements and strides that we've made. But I think looking inward into Nigeria is to say what has happened. Government must do beyond crashing right-of-way costs, as we've seen in Ekiti State and some other states. Lagos is trying to take the bull by the horn, to champion, fiber and broadband access. Government must do more than set up regulatory agencies to fine and tax, telecom companies and technology companies, and try to make money out of the sector.
While they are doing that, the question of regulation.
Yes.
So they are giving the enabling environment.
Regulation,
but
yes.
the guys who are rendering the service are not rendering quality service.
Yes.
So I pay $12,500 for internet access a month, and the provider is quick to remind me that my subscription would soon expire, and then I make my payment. But when I call to say there's a downtime, I can't get access, nobody talks to me. We will schedule you, and I can't talk to anybody about it.
So the challenges because of some of the work that I do for, and also working with a group called the Technology and Telecom Sustainability Working Group. So we look at sustainability issues, environmental and social issues, and how they relate to the provision of quality services in some cases. Engaging extensively with the telecom companies, they'll tell you that there's a lot of regulation. They're paying so much, and their services are dependent on some other factors. Power, they have to provide their own power, and most of the time in very environmentally unfriendly ways. So through generators, diesel generators, some have alternative sources, renewable energy, just to try and ensure that there's no downtime in the provision of service. And some of them have done fairly well through the pandemic, in the midst of very intense pressure by stakeholders and all of that. So when you have challenges such as we do in Nigeria, and we're yet to really solve and deal with the issue of power, then you want to, which is why I'm saying government should do a bit more than set up these infrastructure regulatory agencies to say, look, yes, we've crashed the right of way, costs, but what else can we do? They must sit face to face with these guys to say, we're going to demand from you the best quality of service, but we also want this service to be, somewhat stable and dependable. And in some cases, how can we ensure that we can subsidize it? So, and I know that this is not in the concurrent list, in the exclusive list in terms of under the ambit of the federal government, for broadband policies and data costs and all of that. But we need to really have that conversation, because if the companies continue to pay so much in fines and taxes, let me leave fines, in taxes to the government, then it's difficult in some cases, for you to demand, monitor, and insist that they give this quality and that they also provide subsidized services. So government must do more than, in this case, create this enabling environment, because when you ask the private sector guys to come in, you must allow them come in a way that competition can, drive down market costs, and then everybody benefits at the end of the day.
I was going to talk to you about what happens in some other climes where you walk into a shop, you can buy a phone, and the phone comes with a line and comes with data and call credit, and you pay monthly subscription. Would that help to make things, to increase the digital quality of life for Nigerians?
I think it's possible. I mean, there was a time in this country where we thought per second billing was impossible until someone did it. So a lot of things are possible. We just need to open up the space in ways that encourage many more investors, to come on board. So now we have a number of organizations who are now investing in the critical infrastructure.
Okay, Frank, the question of cybersecurity, when we talk about increasing quality of digital life, cybersecurity comes to mind. I mean, a lot of people are concerned about their data being captured or being stolen. If they're buying things online, someone might steal their bank details and all of that. How would that work in the midst of seeking to improve digital quality of life?
It's inclusive. It's not because in most of the European countries that did quite well in the areas of e-governance, e-security, and infrastructure, they define their growth along those parameters. So if it's going to be a win, take for instance how people manage finances. For you have an instance where people go and queue at an ATM, draw money, go back into the system to pay, instead of doing the direct transfer. And the concerns they have are related to security in a sense. If you now put that analogy to having to access, provide as much details about yourself on portals that are not secure because of third-party hacking, and that becomes predominant because of poor governance issues of the owners of those portals.
Oh, well, talk about technology and the issues we have to deal with. We'll get back to Frank to finish up on that thing about e-governance, e-security, and how it will help. But we will take a moment and come back to look at, again, how to improve the quality, and then how to manage overuse of that digital space as against the loss of humanity. We'll be back in a moment. Just stay with us. Okay, thank you for staying with us. Frank, are you there? You were talking about, okay, so Amelia, Frank will still talk security,
Yes.
but this thing about the improving quality of digital life
Yes.
and weighing it against the humanity, our humanity. Where do we create the balance?
Can I disagree with you that there's nothing like digital life, right?
No, but there's digital quality, no, digital quality of life. So,
yeah, digital quality of life, because digital is life.
Okay.
The balance. So first, there are a number of things that need to be done urgently. We need to significantly scale digital penetration. The last I checked, I think it was hovering between 12 and 16%. We need to significantly, all the peri-urban areas, rural areas, all need to get into, you know, the way you say the tax net, or you need to widen it. Everybody needs to get into the internet net, or the digital net, you know, as it were. That's so significant. Rural telephony is a project that should have been prioritized side by side with the growth of the telecom space. But I'm glad that, you know, it's resurfaced, as it were, and it's become a front burner priority issue again. We cannot talk about sustainable development, as I started off with in the UN SDGs, without talking about access to information. So let's even leave internet and conference calling and all the social things, getting on social media. I mean, access to information. Maternal and child health. We just celebrated the fact that we're polio free. How do we get information across to the most excluded, most geographically obscure locations in this country? Rural telephony is it.
Okay, so the banks have started this USSG thing, so you don't really need to have internet on your phone to do that. But that's also part of digital.
That's where security comes in, as Frank was going to say. So maybe I'll just speak to it. So the challenge with that, and you still have our banking halls filled. You remember after the lockdown, everybody trooped to the banks, you know, and threw caution to the wind, social distancing, or those social distancing, give me my money. It's because there are too many incidents of cybersecurity and fraud in our banking system. It's too much. And I mean, I'm not going to blame the financial institutions. It's a multifaceted issue. It's beyond it. I know the Central Bank of Nigeria has certain initiatives with respect to that. But for as long as we do not think long-term about some of these challenges, as long as we do not find and engage and work with the best and the right partners, not about patronage, not about nepotism, but really about the best minds, the best experts, the best technocrats. And we do have them in abundance. If there's anything that we need in this country, we have. In terms of people, I know tons and tons of wonderful young people who are doing great work, even in cybersecurity, as we speak, you know. But you can't talk about USSD, for instance, when people don't trust the system. Can my grandmother trust the mobile app?
Oh, meanwhile, let me just say this here. A friend called me the other day, an experience he had. Someone called him, gave him his ATM number, his password, gave him his bank account number, gave him the phone number he used to set up the account, gave him his email, and told him that he's calling from one of the banks, that he noticed that someone was trying to deduct money from his account, Did he authorize it? He said no. And I said, okay, so I have been able to stop the transaction. He said, fine, thank you. Now, the person that called this, my friend, now says, but just to be sure it's you, what is a certain
It's called
code
social engineering.
So what is a certain number, one number on his card or so, the last 4 digits on your card? Yeah, but you stopped the transaction already. Why do you want me? He said, no, I just want to be sure. And thankfully, he did not give that. Some other person, someone else has done that, and
that happens
and they cleared his
every
account.
day.
So the banks keep saying, we will not call you to give you your account number, neither would we call you to ask for your account number. So get into a banking hall to get that sorted. But when we started, in my opening, I said, how aware
Nigerians
are the people who use the internet space? A lot of people post a lot of things. They practically live on social media. It's a digital life. So how aware and what caution should they take? We're winding down.
Yes. So with increased access and with the benefits comes also the dark sides or the negative sides. And I think people need to take personal responsibility about their data. Data rights are fundamental rights, as we know. So the same way you would fight your hospital or you would fight your bank for letting people know that you only have 10 naira in your bank account and you're making noise on social media, as it were, speaking in colloquial terms now, is the same way you need to take responsibility about what you post and share online. And I tell people, your children, putting your children on social media, with the school uniforms, people can tell what your living room looks like. You are exposing yourself. No amount of advocacy from the financial institutions will stop some of these until people take personal responsibility. Social engineering is just a process where people use familiar terms and convince you to share important information about and it doesn't just have to be your bank account. It could be anything else that puts you at risk, right? So people need to take personal responsibility and know that as much as the internet has a lot of benefits, there are people who are trying to take advantage of these benefits for their own, let me not say, selfish gains, and to perpetuate crime and fraud. So and it's not a Nigerian problem, right? All over the world you have it. But with other economies where they've been able to, mainstream data and identity, that's the most important thing. So once we now have this federal government program that's on the national identity number, you can access information about people on the internet. If there's a crime, you can put in a number and database and it shows data footprint. Once we're able to harmonize that, it becomes easier for the banks, HMOs, it's easier for every other person, to benefit. And hopefully with that, not that cybersecurity will be eradicated, it's not possible, but it will be significantly reduced.
Thank you so much. Emilia Asimita is a multi-sector strategist, and Frank Offem, who joined us from Ibadan, is a digital consultant, and internet was quite difficult. Access from Ibadan was quite difficult, so we lost Frank there. Thank you again, and have yourself a beautiful rest of the day.
Again.
Good to see you too. So as we'll be back for the home stretch, her name's Tara, our artist of the week. Don't go away.